Hi, boys and girls. Since we've been learning about habitats in science, and this week we actually learned about the rainforest habitat, I thought we would tie that in with our reading. And I was going to read you a story called The Great Kapok Tree. And now this word is pronounced differently. Some people pronounce it kapok or kapok. I say kapok tree. And it is a special kind of tree that is found in the Amazon rainforest, which we were learning about in science. And so in reading, we're talking about finding the main idea. So as readers, when we read, we want to ask ourselves, what was this all about? What's the point of this? Like, why did the author write this? What is the point? What is it all about? That's the main idea, the big idea. So we're going to be thinking, as I read this, we're going to be thinking about what is the main idea of this book? What is it all about? And we're going to try to pull some details that support or hold up our main idea. Okay, so this story is The Great Kapok Tree by Lynn Cherry. And it starts off with a map of the world, and they have these green areas in there which show the tropical rainforests of the world, and all around the outer layers of these pages show us some rainforest animals that we've been learning about too. Two men walked into the rainforest. Moments before, the forest had been alive with the sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now, all was quiet as the creatures watched the two men and wondered why they had come. The larger man stopped and pointed to a great kapok tree. Then he left. So you can see in this picture just how big this tree is. This is a man standing next to it. He looks teeny tiny next to this big giant tree. The smaller man took the axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack, whack, whack. The sounds of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop. The man wiped off the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great kapok tree. Before he knew it, the heat and the hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. A boa constrictor lived in the kapok tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. "Senor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down." So generations and family members, that means family after family after family, they have lived in that tree. A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. "Senor, my hive is in this kapok tree, and I fly from tree to tree and flower to flower, collecting pollen. In this way, I pollinate the trees and flowers throughout the rainforest. You see, all living things depend on one another." A troop of monkeys scampered down from the canopy of the kapok tree. They chattered to the sleeping man. "Senor, we have seen the ways of man. You chop down one tree, you then come back for another and another. The roots of these great trees will wither and die, and there will be nothing left to hold the earth in place. When the heavy rains come, the soil will be washed away, and the forest will become a desert." So remember, we go back to that beginning, that front page, we can see those giant roots that hold that tree in the ground. And they're saying, if you cut those roots, then nothing will hold the soil, and the rain will come and the dirt will wash right away. A toucan, a macaw, and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. "Senor," squawked the toucan, "you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and seen what happens once you begin to chop down the trees. Many people settle on the lands. They set fires to clear the underbrush, and soon the forest disappears. Where once there was life and beauty, only black and smoldering ruins remain. A bright and small tree frog crawled along the edge of a leaf. In a squeaky voice, he piped in the man's ear, "Senor, a ruined rainforest means ruined lives. Many ruined lives. You will leave many of us homeless if you chop down this great kapok tree." A jaguar had been sleeping along a branch in the middle of the tree. Because his spotted coat blended into the dappled light and shadows of the understory, no one had even noticed him. Good camouflage. Now he leapt down and padded silently over to the sleeping man. He growled into his ear, "Senor, the kapok tree is home to many birds and animals. If you cut it down, where will I find my dinner?" 4 tree porcupines swung down from branch to branch and whispered to the man, "Senor, do you know what we animals and humans need in order to live? Oxygen! And senor, do you know what trees produce? Oxygen! If you cut down the forest, you will destroy that which gives us all life." Right? Oxygen is what we breathe. It's the air we breathe. We get that from our trees. Several anteaters climbed down the kapok tree with their young clinging to their backs. The unstriped anteater said to the sleeping man, "Senor, you are chopping down this tree with no thought for the future, and surely you know that what happens tomorrow depends upon what you do today. The big man tells you to chop down a beautiful tree. He does not think of his own children, who tomorrow must live in a world without trees." A 3-toed sloth. Oh, there he is, my favorite. A 3-toed sloth had begun climbing down from the canopy when the men first appeared. So way back at the beginning, he started his trip down from the top. Remember, sloths are really slow. Only now did she reach the ground. Plodding ever so slowly over to the sleeping men, she spoke in her deep and lazy voice, "Senor, how much is beauty worth? Can you live without it? If you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what would you feast your eyes?" A child from the Yanomamo tribe who lived in the rainforest knelt over the sleeping man. He murmured into his ear, "When you awake, please look upon us all with new eyes." The man awoke with a start. Before him stood the rainforest child, and all around him, staring, were the creatures who depended upon that great kapok tree. What wondrous and rare animals they were. Could you imagine waking up and seeing all those animals staring at you? The man looked about and saw the sun streaming through the canopy. Spots of bright light glowed like jewels amidst the dark green forest. Strange and beautiful plants seemed to dangle in the air, suspended from the great kapok tree. The man smelled the fragrant perfume of their flowers. He felt the steamy mist rising from the forest floor, but he heard no sound, for the creatures were strangely silent. The man stood and picked up his axe. He swung back his arm as though to strike the tree, but suddenly he stopped. He turned and looked at the animals and the child. He hesitated. Then he dropped the axe and walked out of the rainforest. The end. I love that story. So what I want you guys to do today is to tell me about the main idea of that story. And I included directions to make a main idea and detail tree. And so if you decide to make a tree, and you would make something like this, and you would write in the main idea right here on the big trunk. And then on each of the leaves, you'd write one of the details that support it. Detail 1, detail 2, and detail 3. If you don't have time to make a tree or don't feel like making a tree, you can just use a blank piece of paper and maybe fold it into thirds. Might fold it into 3. You could even fold down the top if you want to have your main idea. And you can put your main idea up here. And then a detail in each one of the boxes. So, my challenge for you today is to tell me, what was my story about? What was the whole big idea? What was the main idea? Right? What was it all about? So you're going to put your main idea at the top or on the tree trunk if you're doing a tree. And then give me some examples that support that, right? So what were some examples? So those are called our details. Detail 1, 2, and 3 on the leaves or just on a piece of paper, whatever you have time for today. So I can't wait to see what you come up with for the main idea. Just think, what was this all about? It's a good question, but I bet you can figure it out. Can't wait to see what you come up with.